From before, we get to see both witches and fairies in exams. Myrta's unconfident and Lucy's marked. Bloom wants to go to Cloud Tower to learn more about her past, and her boyfriend helps her, which is great support. Lucy wants to be popular like the Tricks, and she doesn't want to be Myrta's friend anymore, since apparently she's a loser. Myrta wants to deal with the Tricks, and she finds out that they're going to misinform Bloom so that they can steal her magic. It's kind of like Secret at Cloud Tower, but here, Bloom is tricked into thinking she's descended from the three witches. The next day, the Winx are worried sick trying to find Bloom, who has decided to leave lest she endanger everyone. Miraculously, Bloom and Myrta meet, and the Tricks' trick is explained away via implied storytelling. Meanwhile, the Winx each have a moment to shine to find Bloom, and I love the non-aggressive uses of their powers. Back with Bloom and Myrta, the Tricks find them, and Darcy is, and I quote, Queen of Black Magic, so illusions. There's a tiny little twist involving the Tricks and Winx, and I won't spoil it, but I fell for it the first time around. We get some pretty serious magic happening. It's kind of short-lived, but it shows that they are all rather powerful. A really big twist with what happens to Myrta, and I won't spoil it here, but in the upcoming review I will. Characters. It's fun to see Bloom doing a magic test because just halfway through the season she's already improved lots. Her boyfriend is such a sweetie, noticing that Bloom's unhappy and wondering if it's something he said. But it was a sad moment when he was weary of her once she had told him of her supposed witch background. And oddly, in another way, romantic interests aren't merely romantic, since Riven helps inform Darcy about Bloom's plans. Lots of Myrta, so I loved this episode. And wow, does Lucy really criticize Myrta, who's apparently a loser. Picked on, put down, ignored, and apparently a nobody. If this is a friend, then I can't imagine an enemy. Apparently, she is, as Icy describes, the little witch who transforms emotions into images. To me it sounds interesting. Some fun Tricks interactions. They really are sisters since they do fight each other constantly, and I wonder their relative ages. I really liked how different powers can fight off similar powers, like how Darcy saw through Myrta's attempts. Though I haven't been thinking critically too much about magic rules, I do like how you can't break concentration. Love moment. I love the hugging for each girl's newfound friend, and how Myrta tried to protect Bloom. Another love moment, and maybe it's just me, but even Tecna was heartwarmingly affectionate to Bloom. Funny moment of Bloom's reaction to Myrta knowing her, and I suspect that Bloom better get used to her fame preceding her. And this is the only way to find Bloom now is through our powers pose. The Winx always look good. Expectations. Myrta should switch to Althea, even though she's not a fairy. Regardless, she'll be friends with the Winx. Ranking. It's pretty high, and it's because I loved Myrta, Darcy's expertise in illusions, the Winx using magic to find Bloom, and my expectation. From before, the girls are in school, and there will be a quiz. Being a teacher, the dialogue is so relatable and realistic. Bloom sees her professor drop the answers, and now all the Winx need to figure out what to do with it. They hide the envelope and see if they can resist temptation. The storyline and even the ending is kind of predictable. I won't spoil it, but I will fawn over the jazzy theme song played when the girls are sneaking around at night, and I loved Flora's baby doll. Anyways, the ending is kind of fun, but most interestingly is the announcement of parent-teacher meetings. Not for this episode, but for the main story, Ferragonda informs Bloom that Daphne was one of the 9 nymphs of magics. She lives underwater and was the guardian of the dragon's flame, the power that created the magical dimension. Expectations. Obviously, this treasure box and its crown means something, and undoubtedly, it will come up again. And for Myrta, based on her shirt, Icy turned her into a pumpkin. Flora takes care of Myrta, and I hope she turns back. Ranking. This episode didn't seem all that important, but that slow, jazzy theme song is a favorite song so far. From before, the Tricks want Bloom's powers. They summon a nightmare monster that will drain the Winx's powers. The girls' nightmares reveals their personalities and backgrounds. The monster grows each time it attacks. Eventually, the monster and the tricks attack the weakened Winx. Now, when I was watching, I asked myself, can't anyone hear this? And literally, a few seconds later, we see Faragonda, who puts a stop to it all. The tricks are expelled, but I couldn't get over how, despite how powerful they are, waterproof makeup still remains a mystery. Characters. I loved anything Flora and Myrta. I loved the mini Myrta projection and her plan with Flora. Stella has revealing one-liners. Her parents raised her as a princess and as a stranger, and only notice her when she has bad grades. I was kind of disappointed that we never saw the Trix' nightmares, but we did get to see them scared by Faragonda. Ranking. It's a meaningful episode, but it's kind of simple. However, the atmosphere was great. The music, the sounds, and the visuals. From before, Bloom calls her boyfriend where she talks about what's happened recently, but he cuts the call short. Bloom's boyfriend is in an arranged marriage to Diaspro. After talking to Techno's boyfriend, he decides to talk to Bloom. But then, shall we say, Darcy's boyfriend makes him jealous. They fight till the teacher says that the exhibition is soon. Bloom needs to know what's going on with her and her boyfriend, and, encouraged by Stella, goes to see him. Bloom bumps into a girl who has a hologram of her boyfriend. Comparing her to the previous photo, it's Diaspro. Based on how the Tricks have messed with her before, Bloom thinks this is another way for them to torment her. It's not a spoiler to say that Bloom's wrong, since we already know the truth from the beginning scenes, but you can't blame her. Now, to be fair, as how I've criticized Riven and Musa, Bloom can think or feel how she wants, but she shouldn't get violent. But anyway, the girls fight. It's an unfortunate situation, and the girls hate each other so much that they battle it in public. Now, spoiler warning. Diaspro informs Bloom that this blonde guy is Prince Sky of Erkleon, and it devastates her. Expectations. It looks like Bloom will leave, but if she did, then the show would end. Thus, if she does leave, then it will be short-lived. Characters. It's a tiny but wonderful character moment. I totally love seeing and hearing Musa play music. There's a storyline with Stella finding out her would-be prince is actually a squire, so that's too bad for her. Now Bloom, well, what can you say? It's another blow to her reality and identity. First she's adopted, and now this. Accordingly to the teachers, the Tricks are gifted, mastering the art of black magic, and dangerous. So definitely watch out for them. Ranking. This episode changes everything in terms of relationships. It's not really my thing, but it's an important episode. Don't watch unless you've seen the episode. From before, after learning the truth, Bloom wants to leave. I completely agree with the Winx's protests. Seriously, Bloom, they were all fooled by him, and besides, he's just a boy. Anyways, Bloom goes home, but Stormy sees her, and ultimately the Tricks plan to ambush Bloom at home. They do, and wow, such a low blow to go after her parents. Attacking defenseless family changes everything. There was a magical girl fight, but seeing as Bloom will seemingly fight to the death, the Tricks threatens Bloom's parents again. Bloom saves them, which is expected. I also thought that the Winx would save her by now. Spoiler, they don't. Icy explains why they're doing this. The ancestral witches wanted the power of the dragon flame that's inside Bloom. They went after baby Bloom, but Daphne, who is Bloom's big sister, saved her and sent her far away. Daphne was killed, but Bloom survived, and this makes Bloom the lost princess of Domino. The Tricks are continuing where the witches left off. They take Bloom's powers, which is the dragon's flame. So, in summary, the evil Tricks now have the source of all life in the magical dimension, and Bloom is without her powers. Meanwhile, the teachers were told of Bloom's departure, and, in the end, Bloom's first fairy friend arrives to bring her back. Characters. It's all Bloom this episode, and I loved how the last episode was visualized from her point of view. And then when she's going home, Bloom sees visions of her friends as she remembers fun times she had. Bloom feels that she's let down her parents, and she can tell, but I'm not really sure about mind reading your parents. Whenever Bloom is sad, I'm kinda sad too. She doesn't seem happy doing things that she once enjoyed. It's so sweet that Bloom helps her mom at the flower shop, but by using magic, she doesn't quite fit in on Earth. The Tricks are no longer troublesome rival schoolgirls. Not only are they powerful, but they are also truly evil. Even Darcy, who I've liked so far, well, the appeal's gone, and if she keeps this up, it's gone for good. Expectations. Considering how important magic is, Bloom will get her powers back. How exactly, I don't know. Just wondering if Mitzi will ever have definitive proof of Bloom's powers. And also, does Bloom have any Earth friends? Ranking. This episode changed the whole tone of the whole show, and it made everything much more serious. From before, the Tricks have the power of the dragon flame, and therefore the story has taken a dark turn. Supported by Stella, Bloom returns to Althea and talks about her recent discoveries and events with the teachers. At Cloud Tower, the Tricks take over the school. They easily overcome their teachers and imprison them. They summon the Army of Darkness, monsters of various size where if cut apart make many smaller ones, or if united make a single large one. Riven meets Darcy. Not only is he betrayed by being used as a spy, it is also as if he's a traitor to the fairies too. The schools are attacked by the Army of Darkness, and there's quite a lot of extended fantastical fight scenes. The episode ends, but this epic battle still rages on, and will probably continue till the end of the season. Characters. The Tricks obviously want power, but just wondering, will there be any power struggles between the sisters? But then again, this power struggle is not an expectation, since I don't recall any hint of it, as all seem happy with Icy as leader. I don't like Riven, but I do feel sorry for him. He realizes that his girlfriend, who had saved his life, was using him. And with that, I'm going to stop my fawning over Darcy. I still love her style, but she's a witch that starts with a B. Overall, I mischaracterized the Tricks. I originally thought that they were troublesome rival schoolgirls, but they're actually evil witches. There's virtually no turning back now, unless it's conveniently explained away that they were corrupted somehow. During the battle, Diaspro wants to take Sky away, but he refuses. So I wonder what will happen with that relationship. Fun slide. This is the pose for the Winx when they are just about to fight the Army of Darkness monsters. Ranking. It kind of feels like a different show, but it's still with the characters that you've learned to love, so it's always interesting. From before, the Tricks' army continues to attack. The Winx travel to Domino, hoping to restore Bloom's powers. They get cute winter outfits, since Domino is a snowy wasteland. In the end, Bloom falls down a crevasse. Expectations. It's virtually assured that Bloom doesn't die since who else could stop the overpowered Tricks? It will be interesting to see how different schools cooperate to defeat the Tricks, since boys are with the girls now. Characters. Interesting to see Nut switch sides and the duck leave his mommy. We'll see if they'll stay good. Oddly, I found these moments cute. Darcy's baby talk to the little monsters, and the sisters high-fiving. Ranking. To explain, I get bored of battles very easily and action in general. To me, it's mindless filler. I'd much rather see its implications, specifically how it changes characters. From before, Bloom's fall allows her to explore what she discovers as the underground of Domino's castle. She meets the other girls, and they, as a group, combine their magic and thaw some of the castle. Really smart scene. Daphne appears. She was once the nymph of Lake Rocaluche, and she shows Bloom the crown once seen in a vision. Bloom was destined to be the keeper of the dragon flame, but the ancestral witches wanted its power. Baby Bloom was sent to Earth by Daphne, so the witches failed, but they destroyed Domino and killed her. The king and queen, who thought they had lost their daughters, went into exile, so they're grieving, but they're still alive. Thank you, Daphne, for that world building, but I'm curious. What characterizes death if you can talk so directly to the living? Anyway, Bloom's back. She's ready to learn more about herself and defeat the Tricks and their monsters. They defeat ice monsters via Winx magic. It's like the last episode due to lots of fighting, but here it's different. We get to see not only each character's fighting style, but we also see teamwork, combining powers, like before with the Thaw. So unlike last episode, the fight wasn't just action, it was also characterization, since the Winx have learned a new tactic. The boys came by and fly the girls out of Domino. As the girls spy on Sky and Bloom, it seems like they've reconciled. Characters. The pose for battling snow monsters. But those outfits? I guess you stay warm due to the fighting. There was probably lots of background hints and world-building references, but I was too focused on Daphne's sisterly love. Personally, I found the girls let the guys off way too easily, and I just wonder if things would turn out the same way were situations reversed. Love moment at the end with Muse's music and Flora sleeping, though she's awake the second Bloom and Sky start talking. Ranking. It's much higher than last time, since it was fighting that was more than just fighting. Also great Daphne moments. From before, the girls, the boys, and even Nut combined forces to stop the Tricks. Also, Dicey's betrayed Riven. Nut will lead them underground to the Tricks, so heartwarming how quickly and warmly the other girls accepted him. Others will stay behind to defend Althea. The girls get emotional and hug. Even Tecna can't hide her feelings. And this is the defend Althea pose, and there's another battle. It's not overdone, and so I really liked it. For Riven, Dicey tortures him psychologically by making him confront monsters that mirror his actions. Riven self-reflects and copes with his past problems. He tries to escape and learns that the witches are trying too. Icy knows everything, since she's been spying on everyone. Despite her power, isn't she getting overconfident? Back with Nut, they're about to be attacked by bugs, but Bloom stops the boys from attacking since it might alert Icy. That's amazing smart move from Bloom, and bravery as she fights off bugs, despite not having any magical powers. In the end, they're all saved by a mysterious warrior, which is, as you can predict, Riven, and he joins the team. Characters. We have helpful reformed villain Nut, apologetic troublesome loner Riven, and 2 healing relationships. And if you add the imprisoned witches, we get lots of interesting change of characters and their interactions. Lots of cute moments too. Stella was so nice, Flora's well-intended comment was funny, and even Murta was helpful. Stella gets clarification that her boyfriend Brandon is a page. Mischievously, she doesn't say if it matters or not. Expectations. In future seasons, will we learn about these other fairies? If so, I wonder how many hints of characterization I've missed. I'll end with a fun moment of the girl's reaction that the boys will be staying over, surprised by how happy Tecna is. Ranking. Any episode that makes me like a past villain or sympathize with the jerk is a good episode for me. From before Nut is leading the team, Icy feels that the dragon's flame will assure that the Tricks will win. I quote Sky here, "No guides, no traps, why the Tricks so sure of themselves? To me it seems plot convenient. Eventually the Tricks find them, but Miss Griffin defeats the Tricks. She was freed from prison along with her students. The witches apparently turned good, probably temporarily, seal off the Tricks inside the school and they leave. As they do, monsters approach them, and so Sky and Bloom divert them. As they leave the castle, they crash." Characters. I love the little inspirational talk to the concerned students who voiced very reasonable concerns. So cute to see Tecna and learn how she wants to put aside logic so she could be swept away by emotions. I like seeing the Trix angry, especially Darcy. She doesn't mind betraying others, but hates being betrayed herself. Expectations. Before I asked about fairies. Now I'll ask about other witches. Will we learn about them? Ranking. Sorry, but it seemed predictable or convenient and thus uninteresting. For example, there was no tension with Nut possibly backstabbing the team since we see the Trix's reactions. From before, Althea fairies, Red Fountain boys, and now Cloud Tower witches all fight together against the Trix. The Trix continue to spy on Sun monsters, but in the end, they decide to attack Althea personally. The fight monsters pose. Although there's an extended fight scene, overall, it feels like the calm before the storm. For Sky and Bloom, they now have to walk. Lots of dialogue from Bloom revealing her self-doubt. Once they see the Trix's effectively endless army, they split. Sky goes to Magic City, deserted but with dead people. Bloom goes to Lake Wakaluche and calls out for Daphne. The end. Basically fighting with some storytelling. Characters. Love the girl's concern over not seeing Bloom. For me, it's moments like this which makes an episode. Stella forgives Brandon. Based on her parents, she knows that nobility in and of itself doesn't solve issues. The Winx enjoy the cuteness. After a little quip from Brandon, Stella says, "Please be nice to my friends. I'm the only one allowed to torment them." Ranking. Sorry, but like last episode, it just didn't seem to be too much in this episode. Love Stella's moments though. From before, here we'll conclude Bloom's struggle, Myrta's curse, and Sky's trip just before the season finale. With Bloom, she restores her powers by Daphne reminding her of her parents, the Winx, and herself. With Myrta, Flora saves her by realizing her need to save Myrta is more powerful than the power of the curse. Amidst all this sentimentality, Stella and the girls kinda tease Musa and Riven, but nothing really happens. With Sky, we see people much like the real-life victims of Pompeii. To me, they're dead, but I don't know if that's too dark. With Althea, the students are showing battle fatigue, and considering the amount of fighting, obviously, who wouldn't? We get some continuity with the water nymphs warning Althea that the army of darkness and the Trix are approaching. Back to Sky, monsters attack him, and this dude in distress is saved by our damsel. Very easy with her restored powers. The episode concludes just before the season-ending showdown, and wow, does Icy look good here. Characters. With Bloom, I love those screenshots of previous episodes to remind her and the audience. Bloom's dragon appears a lot, but it doesn't feel overdone since story-wise we're leading up to an epic finale. I wonder if the dragon has a personality and a character itself, or is it just a visual representation of Bloom's powers? Really great to see Myrta as a human, and I simply can't express how much I love seeing her as one of the girls. With Stella, though it's probably an offhand comment, it's true that humor can be used as a coping strategy. My expectation is that, despite how I've interpreted these cocooned people as dead, they're probably alive. Else, even if good wins, it won't feel like it. Ranking. It feels like the calm before the storm, since there's not much action, apart from tying up previous storylines. From before, it's Althea, Red Fountain, and Cloud Tower versus the Army of Darkness and the Trix. Specifically, Bloom versus Icy, Winx versus Trix, and the rest versus monsters. It was so much fighting, it just became silly. However, I did like the strength of the monsters depending on the strength of the witches commanding them. Couples are made, people are restored, Nut joins the Althea staff, and Myrta transfers. Overall, really nice changes. The Trix were, apparently, driven mad by their thirst for power, and they'll be purified at Lake Wakaluche. To me, that minimizes their antagonism too much, for if they were corrupted, then they wouldn't have known right from wrong. There's a party for the victorious good characters, and it sets up lots of potential for stories and world building. Characters. Bloom has already grown very much from that very first episode when she thought she was just an ordinary girl. Though I quickly got tired of all the action, I really did love all the reactions of the Tricks when they were losing. Despite their purification in between seasons, I completely expect that they'll remain evil and want revenge. Expectations. As how there's good girls and boys and bad girls, is there a school for bad boys? Between Bloom and Sky, when good was victorious, they dreamed of kissing each other, but in reality only hugged. The very last scene is of Bloom wanting to learn about her background and this fairy world. I want to learn too. Ranking. Action's not my thing, just this low ranking, but this finale works perfectly as it finishes up one season well and makes you eager to start watching the next one. And that is my episode-by-episode review of Season 1 of the Winx Club. I will continue on with Season 2. In regards to ranking, I will take the top, the middle, and the bottom ranked episodes. I will keep them, and so when I review Season 2, I will rank episodes in relation to the Season 1 episodes. Winx Club is directed, created, and produced by Engineer Straffi and his company Rainbow SRL, in co-production with Y Fiction. The purpose of this review is non-profit criticism to add expression, meaning, and message to the original, some edited screenshots for reference, and no harm intended to the copyright owner.